Location, Blanot, France. Date, March 1331. It was the first Mass of the day, offered by Hugues de la Baume, the vicar of Blanot. Because of the solemn occasion, two men of the parish, named Thomas Kylo and Gio Besson, were also serving in addition to the altar boys. At communion time, the two men approached the altar railing, took their places at each end, and turned the loincloth over the railing, as was the practice in those days. The parishioners took their places, held their hands under the cloth, and waited for the approach of the priest. One of the last to receive was a woman named Jacquette, described as being the widow of Blanot de Fort. The priest placed the host on her tongue, turned, and started walking towards the altar. It was then that both men and a few of the communicants saw the host fall from the woman's mouth and land upon the cloth that covered her hands. As the priest was then placing the ciborium inside the tabernacle, Thomas Kylo approached the altar and informed him of the incident. The priest immediately left the altar and approached the railing, but instead of finding the host, he saw a spot of blood the same size as the host, which had dissolved into the blood. When the Mass was completed, the priest took the cloth into the sacristy and placed the stained area in a basin filled with clear water. After washing the spot and scrubbing it with his fingers numerous times, he found that it had become larger and much darker, far from becoming smaller and lighter. On removing the cloth from the basin, he was surprised to find that the water had turned bloody. The priest and his assistants were not only astonished, but also frightened, and exclaimed, "This is the precious blood of our Lord Jesus Christ." The priest then took a knife, and washing it, cut from the cloth the piece bearing the bloody imprint of the host. This square piece of cloth was reverently placed in the tabernacle. Investigation. 15 days later, an official of the Archdiocese of Autun, Jean de Rossier, journeyed to Blanot to initiate an investigation. With him were the Curé de Lucenay, a Monsignor of Autun, and an apostolic notary. The interrogation of witnesses was conducted in the presence of Pierre Osnanaut, the Curé of Blanot. The results of this investigation were sent by Archbishop Pierre Bertrand to Pope John XXII, who pronounced a favorable verdict and accorded indulgence to those who would celebrate Mass in the parish church of Blanot. Copies of the documents are still kept in the City Hall of Blanot and are described as being in an ancient style, which is difficult to read. The hosts that remained in the ciborium after the distribution of Holy Communion on that Easter Sunday were never used and were carefully reserved in the tabernacle. The reason for this is not known, although one might speculate that the priest wished to avoid a possible repetition of the prodigy. In 1706, these hosts, preserved in good condition after 375 years, were taken in a 5-hour procession around the parish of Blanot in observance of the anniversary of the miracle. Taking part in the ceremony were many prelates and a great many people of the parish and surrounding areas. After the procession, the silver ciborium holding the hosts was returned to the golden box in which it was kept. This was carefully placed in the main tabernacle of the church. Each year, on Easter Sunday, according to ancient custom, the relic is solemnly exposed in the church of Blanot. This miracle is a constant reminder for us about the reverence that the Blessed Sacrament deserves. Often in our communities, the Eucharist is treated without reverence. We see it as just a ritual, and we don't comprehend the gravity of the Blessed Sacrament. It is always good to look back into the tradition of the Church to see how the Blessed Sacrament was seen and revered. This miracle shows not just a visible sign, but the reverential fear that the Catholic community had towards the Blessed Sacrament. Let's kneel before the Lord of Lords and adore Him with reverence. Every time we take part in the Holy Qurbana, let's be attentive to the great sacrifice of Christ that is being offered at the altar.